choo.
My
All
guy.
aboard the Alonso hype train, Mr. Nate Saunders. You were feeling it a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago. Obviously, you can gloat and feel it now. I mean, where do we even begin with the resurgence? And obviously, Fernando is such a great personality, a two-time world champion. Seeing him with this machine was awesome. But why do you think there has been such a resurgence at Aston Martin this year, this quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I put that question to Christian Horner on Sunday. I said, "Are you surprised?" We kind of the logic of the paddock was that no team was going to make that jump. If you look at Alpine and McLaren over the last few years, they've kind of been stuck there, waiting for regulation changes, waiting, long-term projects, etc. And fair play to Laurence Stroll. He's invested massively in that team. He's brought in two massively talented people, Dan Fallows, who came from Red Bull, and Eric Blandin, who came from Mercedes. So he's brought in two minds from the only two teams that have won championships since 2010. And I think that always is quite, it can go under the radar a bit when people do that. It's not just about the know-how about what they're doing with a car, but it's also what they know about those teams, and they can say, "Look, we did this at this team, and we won X number of championships by doing this." So I think he's been very smart, and obviously one of the big moves as well last year was Fernando Alonso, and I don't think that can be understated either. I think Alonso's gone in there, and I genuinely, I mean, I tweeted this, and a load of Vettel fans came after me, but I genuinely think Alonso did a better job at the weekend than Vettel would have done. I think just in terms of how good he's been for so long, he doesn't make mistakes. He's consistently got the best out of that car. He's probably the perfect person you want in that kind of situation for Aston Martin. They know they've got something good. You're going to have a driver there every week who's just hustling it completely. We saw Vettel making mistakes over the past kind of 3-4 years, especially, I mean, since kind of Hockenheim 2018, I've always thought he was a bit of a different driver. So I think that's been a big thing as well. And since Spain last year, so even before Alonso came and before they'd made some of these big appointments, they'd recognized Red Bull as the concept to kind of go towards. So that's actually been a long time coming. They've started shifting towards that. But yeah, during the weekend, I mean, I was speaking to people I know at Aston Martin, and I was like, "This is pretty good, isn't it?" And they were like, "Well, we'll see. You could tell." Even when we got to Saturday, and we're going into qualifying, they didn't want to say, because they were like, it could all look different when we qualify. And Fernando Alonso said that as well. He said, we knew we weren't in the fight with Red Bull, even though he had put those practice times in. I think the hype almost ruined the story, because we suddenly were like, well, maybe he can win the race. And obviously Red Bull is so far down the road, but what they did was pretty remarkable. And yeah, what will be interesting now will be seeing how much it is replicated over other circuits, but they've clearly built a very, very good car. I think the most exciting thing from them, and again, something that the whole team deserves credit for, is that because of the nature of their car, there's so much to extract from that. There's so much more potential to come. So they could be there to stay. And I think that to do that, over one winter, Christian Horner joked, it's nice to see the other Red Bull up here as well, on the podium. But yeah, I think, they've obviously done the smart thing, and they've probably come from, they probably had nothing to lose last year, whereas if you look at Ferrari, Mercedes, they obviously were hoping they'd have title aspirations. I think last year, the more you look at it now, clearly Aston, I'm not saying they threw the towel in, but I think that their focus had shifted last year, maybe earlier than we realized at the time.
It's an interesting comment, Laurence, the difference between what Aston Martin did and what Mercedes did. Mercedes doubled down on their concept, where Fernando kind of alludes to Aston Martin scrapping theirs and starting fresh. Do you feel like that's a fair assertion?
Yeah, they did. I mean, they did it very early in the regulations. So they started last year, at the very start of last year, really as the 8th or 9th fastest team, way off where that team wanted to be. And a lot of people pointing the finger and saying, look, Laurence Stroll spent all this money and what's it achieved? Now, they quite quickly recognized that and changed. And so by the Spanish Grand Prix, they had a car which looked very similar to the Red Bull, to the point that there were even questions about the legality of it, how they'd arrived at that place. Dan Fallows had just joined the team, but they were found that actually it was completely fine, and they come up with it through their own means, and in pretty much in the way that any other Formula One team develops a car. You do take some inspiration, but you also have to understand how it works and put it together and put it on track. So they've done that. I guess what's interesting, if you look at the end result of the Bahrain Grand Prix, is that you had Max Verstappen winning by 11 seconds from Checo, and then 39 seconds to Fernando Alonso. Now, 39-second gap between the front of the midfield and the race winner is not unusual in recent years in Formula One. That's roughly where you expect it to be. The unusual thing was that there wasn't a Ferrari or Mercedes plugging that gap or closer to Red Bull. So while, look, I'm not taking anything away from what Aston Martin have done. They've absolutely nailed it. If you think if you look at it another way, it's more that Red Bull and Ferrari and Mercedes have really messed up and are not in that position where they should be. And then if you start to divide the grid into different car concepts, well, the Aston Martin is very close to the Red Bull. So, they've both made massive steps forward over the winter, whereas teams following no one really follows a Mercedes design concept because it's so unique and so weird. But if you look at teams following the Ferrari concept, they haven't quite maybe made the step forward that they'd hoped. Williams, another one which has some similarities to the Red Bull, they made huge gains from where they were at the start of last year to where they are at the start of this year. And now it's not as obvious because they were so far off the back of the grid last year, but they are now in a much better position. So when you look at it like that, I think Aston have made the right decisions at the right time. And I think what they've really benefited from is good technical leadership. Someone at the top, most recently, Dan Fallows saying, right, we need to do this. And Dan Fallows, coming from Red Bull, had a good idea of exactly what was needed to build a good car. So I think that's just paid off. And, the exciting thing about Aston Martin is that this is just a start, because they don't move into their new factory until May this year. And now that might result in some short-term difficulties because it's a lot of people to move across. It's a lot of new machines that are going to start working. But long-term, that will allow them to bring updates quicker to the car because they'll have better manufacturing capability. I've seen the design office. I've been in there as they were building it. And it's this lovely, beautiful, open plan design office where people will be able to exchange ideas much more freely compared to now, where essentially they're working out of porta cabins. I don't know if porta cabins is the right word in American English, but temporary buildings. They're working out temporary buildings stacked on top of each other, almost like kind of shipping containers stacked on top of each other.
Yeah,
that's what they're working out at the moment. So when they get into this new office, which is going to, the idea to have ideas flowing around, concepts and things like that, essentially it should all push them forward. And then coming another year or so down the line, they have their own wind tunnel, which they claim is going to be the best wind tunnel in F1, better than Mercedes one, which they're using at the moment. So it really does feel like it's the start of something pretty special there. And I don't think anybody expected them to make these gains so quickly, and that they have already made these gains. And then there's the potential for more is probably what's got Mercedes and Ferrari a little bit worried as well as probably Red Bull.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus. Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.